MTV is MTV.
Won't bloody go away.
The best ideas that anybody ever come up with.
It's entertaining.
Just a relaxed vibe.
He didn't change my life.
Commitment to quality.
Essential.
But that's definitely my daughter's life.
Not the most important thing in my life, MTV.
You helped us stop watching porn.
Greatest music television around.
Even when the bastards don't play our videos.
Well, happy birthday, pal.
MTV is now a household name throughout Europe with 10 dedicated channels and numerous versions to satisfy the audience. But it wasn't always the case.
So I think it's about time that MTV and rock and roll is taken all over Europe.
When MTV Europe kicked off back in August 1987, the region had barely a handful of satellite channels.
I launched MTV in Europe. I was asked if I could entertain the people going on the launch for MTV Europe, and I had to entertain them from Victoria train station all the way to Amsterdam and back.
I remember the outfit I was wearing because it was absolutely horrendous.
We're just about to get on board the MTV Europe party train and people are already arriving. Let's see who's here. Hi.
Hello, how are you?
All right, can I sit in your lap?
No, you can't.
Well,
you're a man.
They said don't drink too much on the way down.
Who are you, then?
I'm Blanche. We dressed up as cleaning ladies, with sort of lipstick on our teeth and our hair up and pinnies on and sort of support tights and slippers. And we had broomsticks and we were sweeping the platform, going, all right, laugh, as they got on. I went, look, it's Donny!
Donny Osmond,
How are you doing? What was Donny Osmond doing there?
Well, he chartered a train, I believe. The inappropriately named Gatwick Express, which took... which wasn't.
This'll be a plane then. I'm scared of flying.
This is great, the cockpit of the aircraft. I've never been in one of these. I'm just going to see what one of these buttons does.
MTV into Europe, it's my birthday.
That's great.
So, I think that was very well planned of you. Do a birthday,
You meant to do that,
birthday
didn't you?
party in my honour. It just happens to be MTV opening night as well. That's good fun.
Dig it!
The thing I remember most about the actual gig was being stood somewhere in the audience with Fish and Bruce Dickinson from Maiden, watching Terence Trent D'Arby do the entire gig with his back to the crowd. Because everybody was talking and they weren't listening to him. And, you know, I mean, it was kind of like probably not a good idea to have an artist like him on.
What do you think of the party?
I went upstairs and it was like going to a sauna. I'm too old for these things, but it's very nice for these young people to enjoy themselves so much.
I interviewed Elton John, and as is my wont, I had a number of questions written on my hand. So he said, oh, what's that? And I said, oh, it's my handifax. To which Elton replied...
Handifax, yeah. Best stuff, you know. How can you masturbate with a file of facts?
Well, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so hard.
It spoils the pages, yeah.
I was extremely pleased about this because they ran this the next morning on the news and it got us our first complaint.
Good evening, bonsoir, goedenavond, goedenavond, buonasera, good afternoon. Ik ben Marcel van Tilt en this is MTV Music Television.
I hadn't got a clue that MTV were going to use it for a launch or anything. It's kind of fantastic when you're part of a milestone.
Money for nothing, get chicks for free. Well, money for nothing and chicks for free. Of course. It goes without saying, doesn't it?
Well, it's the ultimate, it's the rock and roll cliche, isn't it?
I want my. That was my first impression of MTV. I want my MTV.
The step to bring MTV over from the States was a big move, and one that started out in a small but confident way, with, so the story goes, 2 people coming over carrying an MTV logo in a suitcase.
You had a core of people who knew what they were doing, and then you had a bunch of people who loved what the idea was and what it could become.
Dass eben völlig unglaublich war, dass plötzlich den ganzen Tag über Musik gelaufen ist und Rockmusik und es gab Videoclips.
The question was how European it could get. Whether it would become like a Coca-Cola just waving over Europe rather than become more detailed and more characteristic with the European flavor.
We were definitely looking for people throughout Europe who would represent a more European feel than an American feel.
I want my MTV. Once we started taking the ball and running with it, then all of the Americans said, well, this is not quite how we do it in America, but these Europeans, they're really quirky. Let them go with it.
Music television, MTV. This is our camera, and this is me.
We went straight into the studio. We rehearsed for about a month or 6 weeks, meaning we tried to speak English in front of the camera while announcing videos. And that was difficult. That was the first step. And then the second step was speaking English in front of the camera and walking at the same time from one spot in the studio to the other. That was even more difficult.
Well, there was one VJ that we knew when we were playing clubs, which is a long time ago. Ray.
He was doing the show in Belgium where he was doing all these stunts. He was like climbing on the back of moving locomotives, bending down with his cameraman as they went through a tunnel. The guy was nuts. But we saw tremendous talent, and he was somebody we really wanted.
Oh, they hired Mikan because every single male got a complete hard-on when they saw Mikan on camera.
I got it right, I think. I watched some tapes not so long ago, and I was just, I was shocked, basically, and I was thinking, they should have fired not only me, but also the producer who allowed it, because basically, I didn't understand a word of what I said.
It was a lot of people speaking English with dodgy accents.
It was kind of suggested, I remember, that it was good that you had people who didn't speak English that well, because therefore, people who in non-English-speaking countries would be able to comprehend it greater.
I speak English badly. I can't fault anyone who's a VJ on MTV Europe.
No, I think it's gone on a little bit since then, but they're still pretty good looking.
I actually think it's a pretty good single. Woo! Maybe we should just rush into the video before the whole thing starts falling apart.
With the poor, we are down. French VJ Sophie Bramley used her personal knowledge to bring rap to Europe with Yo.
What's the station, y'all? Yo!
When we started Yo in London, which was exactly a year before Yo in the US, I called Fab Five Freddy and said, guess what, I'm doing this Yo thing on MTV. And he was like, wow, and how is it called? And I said, Yo. He was like, what, you call the show Yo? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, how do you start the show? Like, what do you say? And I said, well, I go like, yo, what's up? You say, yo, what's up on TV? And he was like, amazed. And then a year later, he gave me a call and said, well, guess what? I'm doing Yo now in the US. It was fun.
Hi, I'm Steve Blame, but that's my problem.
Steve Blame and Chris Salovich, who came from the UK, were really sort of our music cred guys. So we went into it with that lineup, and we felt pretty comfortable that we were satisfying our European feel.
Hi there, I'm Chris Salovich, except no substitute. Welcome to MTV News, where every hour my partner, this guy named Blame, or myself, will appear on your TV as if by magic and fill you in on all the latest news about music, movies, fashion, and other stuff.
They were offbeat. I remember the executives from the States looking at the people we had chosen. They said, we don't know we like what you're doing.
They hated me.
Of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world, she walks into mine. What's that you're playing?
Just a little something on my own.
Well, stop it. You know what I want to hear.
Why don't you remind me?
You played it for her, you can play it for me.
I seem to have forgotten it today.
If she can stand it, I can. Play it.
Yes, sir.
It was in the I'm glad to be gay days, and I think everyone looked at Steve and Lee and said, well, that's a bit weird, isn't it? Oh, fine, great, fantastic. A bit strange, though.
Get those faggots off my channel.
Steve Blame, huh? That guy? And I'm like, we wouldn't have him. Right, you wouldn't, we would.
We got some interesting, funny, unique, odd, attractive people, and but they were European through and through, and they were very different than the American counterparts, who were much more, I think, glamorous and slick, and we weren't slick.
I saw MTV as the punks who were going to blow away all the boring old farts who were making TV shows for young people.
MTV Europe back in the early years was low budget, pioneering, resourceful, and somewhat risque.
If Steve, God forbid, said something that offended me, I could...
Like, where did you get that dog collar?
Right. Well, yes, that might not quite do the trick, but...
Well, I'd try.
Things like...
How about just look at the state of you.
Oh, now we're getting a bit warm. They're beginning to rile me now.
You know what? I'd watch that.
I'd watch it now.
Definitely.
I think you want to dig those up the vault.
Yeah.
Woe to the hand that shed this costly sausage! Zumba, 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 zo, zumba, zumba, zo, zumba, 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 zo, zumba, zumba, zo.
It was hard to find good talent in those days, and you had to go whatever you could find and cheap.
Yes, good evening, Europe. You're talking to the Masked Avenger, and I'm talking with Roger, Ian, and the phenomenal Adrian. I've got no pants, Edmondson.
And that's completely true. Ian, give us one of your screams. I'm off.
Well, I beg your pardon. Roger, show us your knob.
And I said, guys, that was so great. Would you mind doing another link? That was like saying to, pyromaniacs, you just set a little fire. Would you like to burn down a building?
Jimi Hendrix is the person who I consider to be...
The most dead person you've met.
No. Much less, he's not a cunt, and he's not a fuck. He's a cunt fuck.
And they're spraying beer around. I'm thinking someone's going to get electrocuted.
I'm about to jump through this window.
The woman who worked in lighting at the time was screaming at the top of her lungs, stop them, there's going to be arcing, people get electrocuted.
It's actually a permanent structure. This hasn't been fixed by MTV at all.
So you see me on camera go like, no, and I'm trying to pull them away. They're like, the floor assistant just told us no, and and then they pushed through the whole thing, and it all went down. It was probably one of the more humorous / dark moments in the history of MTV Europe. And I think that was the last time they were back.
It became a sort of game between us who worked there and tried to get things on air to try and see how far we could go before we irritated the people that would come back to us. And I remember in the Christmas of '87, we did a pantomime. And there was Marcel Van Tilt as the good fairy.
I do remember Steve Blame being, I think, the rear end of a horse.
I was the Brazilian drag queen.
I feel pretty and witty and gay. I like pity any girl with me today.
There was a great energy which sometimes seemed to get a bit out of control, but that energy really created something, I think, and something that's lasted.
Look at them yo-yos, that's the way you do it. You play the guitar on the MTV.
Coming up, supermodels play VJ and MTV in Europe, not just music television.
It's a very good platform to make serious statements.